Hey there, welcome to episode 64 of Social Business Engine, the podcast that showcases thought leaders who represent modern business in action, people in business who are getting results through the culture and technology of social. I'm your host, Bernie Borges of Find and Convert. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. Hey, on this episode, I'm excited to bring you Dan Gingiss. Dan is the head of digital customer experience and social media at Discover Card. Dan leads all design, development, and customer experience initiatives on Discover Card's flagship website, discover.com, which received the top overall score for customer experience in the Keynote Scorecard. Dan is a frequent conference speaker where he shares his expertise on customer experience. And in fact, I met Dan at the Social Media Marketing World Conference, and I knew that I had to have him on the Social Business Engine podcast so that you can benefit from his valuable insights. We've partnered with Cision on this episode to bring you Social Business Journal Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer relations. Visit socialbusinessengine.com/Cision to download this journal and up your influencer marketing game. And now, let's get to my conversation with Dan Gingiss from Discover Card. Dan, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. Really happy to be here today.
Fantastic. Well, Dan, let's talk about the customer experience. I know you are all about that. And I would like to begin our conversation with one of those duh kind of questions. And that is, why is customer experience so important in modern business?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it really isn't a duh question because most people understand conceptually that having a good customer experience is a good thing, but I think most people would have difficulty answering that question in any more detail. Mm-hmm. And we spent a lot of time looking at the research around why it is important. And Forrester Research has done some great studies on this and has found a direct correlation between really important metrics like the willingness to consider your company for another purchase or the likelihood to recommend your company to a friend or colleague. And they have proven that there is a very positive correlation between those questions and how people feel about their experience with you. And customer experience can benefit your business also in financial ways. So on the revenue side of the equation, people who are happy with their experience tend to spend more and spend more often with companies versus ones that they're not happy with. Mm-hmm. Obviously, happy customers stay with you. And so the ability to retain customers also contributes to revenue. On the flip side, which is the cost, that's really around what happens when you don't have a good experience. So the first thing that happens is your customer service cost goes way up because customers who are not having a good experience are calling you, and that is expensive. Mm-hmm. For those of us also in regulated industries, a bad customer experience can often lead to regulatory action, fines, inquiries, which are also expensive. So there are direct business impacts to having a good customer experience. It's more than just, that it sounds good.
Right. The one benefit that you didn't mention, it's not in the Forrester data, although everything you mentioned is very compelling, and who can disagree with it? But it's the word of mouth factor, right? A good customer experience has potential to be shared with others, and that alone can generate not only repeat customers, but new customers.
That's absolutely true. And in fact, the reverse is true too, is that a negative experience can be shared more so today than ever before. And one of the things that I've been looking at is the propensity for people to share their experiences. And what I found is that positive and negative experiences are the ones that are most likely to be shared. And unfortunately, what that means is that meeting a customer's expectation these days is really not enough because meeting their expectation is not going to get them to share. Mm-hmm. You actually have to exceed their expectation for them to share. And unfortunately, companies that are missing expectations are also finding that people are more than willing to share that.
Yep. So I think it's a great segue to talk about something that you talk about, as I mentioned in my introduction of you, Dan. You, in addition to your day job at Discover, you get on airplanes and you speak at conferences on this very topic, customer experience. So talk a little bit about how do you design the right digital customer experience? Because that's your focus, right? Is customer experience at the digital level, correct?
Absolutely. Obviously, digital is a larger piece in the larger customer experience ecosystem because every experience that a customer has with your brand contributes to their overall opinion of the brand. But yes, my focus is directly on digital. And I think that what we really focus on is starting with the customer need, right? You always, anytime we start a project or we want an enhancement to the website or the mobile app, the first question we ask is what customer problem are we trying to solve? Because you're not trying to solve a customer problem, you're generally not going to end up with a good experience. What you find often is that when you ask that question, sometimes what you get back is the business problem we're trying to solve. That's also important, but if you can't start with the customer problem and what it is that you're delivering to the customer, then generally your digital experience is not going to have that. Also, a big focus on simplicity. Certainly, we understand that when people come to a credit card website, it is not a website that they are there to spend the day on. It's not one that they're browsing on or making long purchase decisions on. It's a site that they generally want to come to and get done with as quickly as possible. And so simplicity is really, really important. Limiting distractions on the experience so that customers can come and do what it is they came to do. In our world, the reality is that people come to check their balance and they come to look at their recent transactions and make sure that they're posted correctly. So anything else that we put in their way is stopping them from doing that. And one of the things that we've really tried to focus on is getting those two questions answered. What's my balance and what are my recent transactions as quickly as possible?
There's something else that you're doing on your website that I want to call out as a shout out, as a positive. You've got a top level nav that's customer service, and all you have to do is mouse over. You don't even have to click on it. You just mouse over it, and then it explodes or expands into lots of options there. So to your point of, if I come to the website, I come here for a specific purpose. I want to accomplish what I need to accomplish quickly and then move on. So that's well designed. I don't know how long that's been in place, but that's very well designed, Dan.
Thank you. And I think really the goal there is to not hide from the customer, right? We always say this in social media for customer service. We want to service customers in the channel of their choice. If the channel of their choice is the website, we want to make sure the website delivers and allows them to self-serve. Or if for some reason they're tripped up and they want to use our click to chat, we want to offer that to them as well. If customers want to call, we want to make sure they have a fantastic experience with our live agents that are all US based and that are empowered to help solve their problems. If people want to email us, we want to be available for them there as well. So the idea behind what you're talking about is that when somebody goes to customer service on the website, what we know is they want to talk to us. So we want to give them as many options as possible to talk to us and let them choose.
Right. And over the years, have you conducted studies to really understand visitor behavior on the website so that you can really attack that on an ongoing basis, from a data-driven standpoint?
Absolutely. We look all the time at both what customers are doing and what customers are saying. So the doing part is looking at the metrics in terms of where are people clicking and how much time are they spending on each page and are they able to complete processes that we've set up for them. If it's a 3-step process, how many people drop out after the first step or after the second step? That's what people are doing. We also then look at what people are saying. Every single page on our website has a feedback mechanism. We use a supplier called Opinion Lab that pops up a survey when the customer clicks. It's customer driven and allows them to give feedback on the page. We get daily reports on the feedback that we get, both people that are rating the page and also that are leaving comments. That helps us find really 3 categories of things. What we call defects, which is that the site is not operating as the way we designed it. irritants, which is that the site or the mobile app is working how we designed it, but not the way the customer wants it to work, or enhancements, which is generally the customer asking for something on the site or the app that it currently doesn't do. So we look at both pieces of what they're doing and what they're saying. Frankly, sometimes those conflict, but that's why we look at both. And it's a very data-driven approach in terms of figuring out what next things we want to do on the site.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I know that, Discover is a large company and your specific area of responsibility is digital customer experience. So I know that you're not directly involved or maybe even indirectly involved in other aspects of marketing. Specifically, I'm referring to your television advertising. And I have to say that I'm a student of advertising on television. I like to observe who's doing it well and not. I think Discover is doing it really well. I love your commercials. My question is there any integration? Is there any kind of a bridge between that marketing, that advertising, and the digital experience, or are they completely separate?
No, absolutely there's integration. And first of all, thank you for the compliments on the commercials. I think one of the things that we've done over the last 2 sets of commercial campaigns is really focus in on customer service. And even though each commercial is focusing on maybe a new benefit that we're offering or something around rewards.
Freeze it!
Or freeze it, exactly. Really, the outer wrapper is about the service that you get when you are a Discover customer. And that obviously is very integrated because on the digital side, I have to deliver on that service just as well as a call center employee has to deliver on it. In social media, we have to deliver on that service just as well as any of the other channels. And that is it is a differentiator for us. It always has been. It seems quaint now, but we were the first credit card company to offer 24/7 customer service. We're still the only credit card company to offer 100% US-based service. And we find that our customers really appreciate that. When you call us up at 1-800-DISCOVER, they answer the phone and they say, "Hi, this is Dan from Phoenix." And it is amazing that how often the conversation then goes to, "Oh, you're from Phoenix. First of all, you're in the United States." That's often a comment. And then, you get this conversation going before the customer even gets around to the reason that they're calling. And it's just a very friendly environment. We do try to mimic that across all of our channels. So absolutely there's integration. And then of course, Freeze It is in itself a digital experience. You're freezing your card on the mobile app and on the website. So very much we're involved in how we communicate that, and that was something we were very proud to have built.
Well, if I call Discover customer service, I expect that at the other end is a gentleman answering the phone who looks just like me, sounds just like me.
Exactly. And then treats you like you would treat you, right?
Exactly. All right, Dan. Well, here we are about halfway through this podcast episode on the social business engine, and we've not even talked too much about social, and we're going to do that next. But first, I do have a brief message from our sponsor, Cision. As I said in the intro, we're excited that we have partnered with Cision on Volume 2 of the Social Business Journal. This is a how-to guide in influencer marketing where people can discover a 3-step process from Cision on how to develop an influencer relations program. And they'll hear from 21 business experts on everything from what an ideal influencer looks like to the secret sauce of penetrating the sphere of an influencer. And these business experts deliver bite-sized insights that give you actionable takeaways for an influencer relations strategy. So everybody can get their copy of Social Business Journal Volume 2 at socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, spelled CISION. Well, Dan, let's talk about the role of social media in customer experience at Discover. I know one of the things that you say when you speak on this is that you've got to get the basics first. So you want to elaborate on what you mean by that?
Absolutely. I mean, you have to start with having a great product or service. And I know that sounds really basic, but one of the problems with social, or one of the benefits with social, depending on which side of the coin you look at, is that everything's amplified. So if you don't have a good product or service, that's going to come out in social, and that's something that you need to fix first. I think you also have to have a very strong culture of customer service, because we are seeing more and more that social media is being used as a channel for customer service. And again, if you don't have the infrastructure to handle service inquiries, if you've got people sitting on hold for an hour in your call centers or taking a week to respond to them on email, you're going to have a lot of trouble in social media, because the expectation is much faster than that. And I think similarly on the marketing side is that, a strong marketer looks at social and says, hey, this is just another channel. Yeah, it's different a little bit. It's got some eccentricities to it that other channels don't have. But if I know how to market, I know how to market on social. And I think it's really taking the kind of core of your company and making sure great product or service, great marketing skills, and a culture of customer service before you attempt social media, because social media can eat you up if you don't have those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at your Twitter profile, not yours, Dan, but Discover's Twitter profile, and it reads as follows. Tweet us your questions. We're ready to help every day, 9 a.m. to midnight EST, Eastern Standard Time. And then follow us for updates on rewards, resources, and news. You lead with tweet us your questions and when you're available. So I don't know how long you've been doing that, but that is brilliant from a customer service standpoint.
Well, I always like to say customer service is the new marketing.
Yeah.
And again, if you go back to what we were talking about on the television commercials, we've been talking about customer service for a while because we know it's a differentiator for us. We're in a very competitive industry. And like any competitive industry, competing on price, or in our case, competing on rewards, is very, very difficult. Of course, we try to compete on those things as well. But service and experience are much harder to copy from the competition. And we do believe that we offer the best of both. So it is natural on a channel such as social for us to point out first and foremost that we're here for you. That's why we're there, is to be there for our customers, whether they have questions, whether they just want to chat with us, even if they have complaints, and especially if they have compliments, of course. We want to hear from them and we want to engage with them.
Yeah. So one of the topics that we have discussed here many times on the Social Business Engine podcast, and we will discuss it again in future episodes, is that of employee advocacy. The whole notion of employees actually engaging as ambassadors for the brand. And one of the things that I am somewhat critical of is that in modern marketing, it's difficult for a brand to be successful behind their logo, that you've got to humanize the brand through employees. But where I'm going with this, Dan, is that I think from my observation that the Discover brand does a good job of humanizing interaction behind the brand. So do you want to elaborate on that strategy and how you're accomplishing that?
Yeah, I definitely think that's intentional, and thank you for noticing that. We ask our agents that are in the social media channel to sign all of their responses with either their name or their initials, depending on space. We also ask them to exhibit their own personality. They certainly have guidelines around how to answer questions. We've got lots of FAQs for them so that because they actually do have to be generalists. They have to be able to answer questions about almost anything. And that is tough because a lot of our call agents are specialized, and the social agents are very generalized. So we give them the answers in terms of, what the actual answer to the question is, but then we tell them to use their own personality and their own language, and often even to, when appropriate, mimic back the tone of the customer. So if the customer is kind of being silly or joking around, it's absolutely fine for our reps to be silly back. And so I think that's what gives it a human approach, is that if you look at the responses that you get from Discover, what you're not going to see are canned responses or repetitive responses, because they're different people that are responding each time, and they're going to make it their own. And that's exactly what we ask them to do.
Yeah, and again, in my observation, you're doing a great job of that. And there's something else that you've said from the stage, and that is the whole notion of really responding to everything, not just complaints, but everything.
Yeah, I mean, I have practiced this myself on my own account and tweeted at many brands, and it is really fascinating to see which ones respond, both in any situation, right? If you compliment a brand, if you ask a brand a question, if you complain about a brand, it's very interesting to see which ones respond. And our philosophy is to respond to everybody. Certainly, a customer that takes the time out of their day to compliment us, while they probably don't expect a response sort of validates, first of all, the fact that they were positive about us in the first place, and tends to make them an even happier customer and more of an ambassador for us. So that, to me, is actually an easy one. And our agents love responding to positive stuff because those are the fun conversations.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Obviously questions, we don't want questions hanging out there without an answer. So if somebody has a question about Freezit or any of our other features or something about their account, we want to get them the answer. I should say on the side that if they have an account-related question, we do have to take them to some sort of a private session. But even with that, we have ensured that we can keep them on the same channel. So last year we introduced the ability to initiate a secure chat within Facebook or Twitter. So if you ask me a question that I really can't answer to you in public, like, hey, can you tell me about my balance, for example, I can send you a personalized link that when you click on it, it opens up a secure chat session, just as if you were on our website, but you don't actually have to leave Facebook or Twitter. Then I can authenticate your account, and you and I can have a direct conversation, and I can give you any of the information that you want. And then on the complaints, I think that there's a lot being said now about complaints, and I think there's more of a realization that complaints are where you really learn about your customer's experience, because complaints are when, frankly, you failed at something. And what company doesn't want to know where they failed and more importantly, how to improve it? So when customers come at us with a problem, we really look at that as an opportunity, first of all, to make an unhappy customer happy. But I think second of all, it's also to get at the root cause of what's causing the problem and to fix it for other customers. So I heard Jay Baer present at Social Media Marketing World as well. And one of the things that he said that I loved was that your complainers are the canaries in the coal mine. They're the ones that are telling you there's a problem before there's a big problem. And so we really take that to heart, and we listen to what the complaints are, just as we do with the Opinion Lab surveys on our website, to really take those to heart and try to get things fixed, because we don't want those hanging out there.
Yeah. I've also heard you say first tweet resolution. What do you mean by that?
So that's my play on a call center term, which is first call resolution. And the idea behind first call resolution is that you want somebody who calls you up to get resolution to their problem the first time they call, because from a customer perspective, there's nothing worse than having to call back and re-explain your problem to a different agent, or call back multiple times. So we took that philosophy to social, and I sort of dubbed the term first tweet resolution, which essentially means the same thing, that when somebody tweets at us, the idea is to answer their question immediately. It's not to answer their question with another question, or to answer their question, or to not answer their question. It is to get to the resolution as soon as possible. And what we find is when we do that, we actually get incredible engagement from the customer after the problem's already solved or the question's already answered. We get continued engagement at a level that would be unheard of from a marketing perspective. So we had a statistic that just floored me in April, where we actually had on Twitter, we had over 100% engagement on our customer service one-to-one interactions, which means that we averaged more than one additional piece of engagement after the issue was solved for the customer during that month. You could never get that from marketing.
Right. Wow, that's impressive. Fantastic. Now, I know that you've also given some examples. We're running a little bit short on time, but maybe you can give a quick example or two on social media of how you've maybe turned that proverbial lemon into lemonade. People who jumped on Facebook or Twitter and had a complaint or something, and how it was handled in social media.
Yeah, I think that today we're still benefiting from the fact that, and you've read all the stats, the same stats I have, that there are still a ton of companies out there that are not responding to questions and complaints on social media. So the ones that are, like Discover, are benefiting from almost an inadvertent surprise and delight, because a lot of customers don't expect a response. Some of them are just there to vent, right? And the ones that mention our handle I think, have a higher expectation of response. The ones that just happen to mention Discover Card without an @ sign on Twitter probably don't expect a response from us. So when they get one, it is a surprise and delight. And oftentimes that will turn an angry person into a happy one. And, one of my favorite examples is a guy that tweeted at us because he thought we were sending him too much mail. And he was a little facetious, maybe with a kernel of truth, kind of asking whether we were just being persistent or whether we just were uncoordinated, that we had sent him so many offers.
Right.
And our agent did a great job and responded and said, we must really be excited to have you apply.
Yeah.
And then, as we always say, solve the problem, told him what to do, which was to DM us the name and address, and we'll take him off the list. And immediately he gets back to us and said, kudos for your great response. Okay, I'll bite. Mostly because of your service. And then he used a hashtag, great service. And so we turned a guy in literally the grand total was 13 minutes. Mm-hmm. We turned a guy who started off unhappy that he was getting too many solicitations from us, and we turned him into a customer at the end of it. So I love examples like that. They happen all the time. And really that's what happens when you have great service and you're willing to engage even with people who are upset with you.
Yeah, that is a great example. That is really, really a terrific example. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Dan, it is time to segue to my one thing question. And Dan, this is where I ask you if there's any one thing that you could change about the way that business is conducted today, what would that be?
Well, if we stay on the customer experience theme, I would say that it is the realization that customer experience includes every single interaction that a customer has with your company. And I think that many brands today, especially big ones, have difficulty coordinating internally the cross-channel experience. And so what I'd like to see is a lot more work around journey mapping, understanding the front-to-end customer experience, especially when they're using multiple channels at the same time, because it all adds up. And I like to say that customer experience is everything, and then in parentheses, because it could all end up on social media. And it's becoming more and more important that every piece of that experience is handled well, from the piece of mail that they get to begin an experience with us, for example, to the ease of their ability to apply for a card, to the speed of our response to approve them, to the ease of logging into the website for the first time, to, what the packaging looks like when they receive their card in the mail, which is such a big moment, to how it, functions when they actually go to the store and use it, and that it works and all that sort of thing. All of those pieces are really important. So my one thing is internal collaboration around the overall customer experience.
Okay, terrific. Now, I want to come back to something you said earlier in our conversation. You said, if I remember correctly, that customer experience is the new marketing. So is part of what you're saying in terms of what you would change, are you saying that customer experience should in fact be part of the marketing mindset in a business?
Absolutely. So I actually said customer service is the new marketing.
Okay.
But customer service is obviously a huge piece of the customer experience. And I think that as marketers, it is absolutely critical that we keep the experience in mind with everything we do. And that was going back to what I said at the beginning about differentiating between the business goal and the customer goal. The business goal is to make more money. We get that. The customer goal is sometimes to partake in the business making more money and sometimes not. And it's really important that as marketers, we figure out when it is an appropriate time to market to people. Because if you think about, for example, a company that sends you way too much email, it just clogs up your inbox, and then you start considering it to be spam. Mm-hmm. Well, what does that do to your impression of that company? It's not positive,
right?
And so we as marketers have to think about that, and we have to. And what does it do what does it do to the perception if a customer receives a mail piece and then an email and then sees an ad on the website for the same program, but maybe the terms are different or it's describing them different and it's adding to their confusion? Mm-hmm. So we as marketers have to always be aware of that.
Right. Terrific. Well, makes a ton of sense, Dan. And as you pointed out, too many companies are not there yet, especially on the whole customer experience mindset that you've shared with us here today. Clearly, Discover Card is very much there, and I commend you for that. And Dan, I thank you for joining me here today on the Social Business Engine podcast to share what you've been doing at Discover Card, to share your insights. And I know that many people can see you speak at conferences like Social Media Marketing World, Social Shakeup, and others. And so on that, where can people learn more about you, know where you're speaking, anything that you want to share that we'll put in our show notes as links?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and it's always fun to talk about a passion point of mine. So hopefully you can hear the enthusiasm over the air. But I'm happy to connect with anybody on Twitter at dgingiss, DGINGISS. Also happy to connect on LinkedIn, and I love keeping the conversation going over social media. I love learning from other people. My belief is that what's great about social is that there really are no experts, because it is a continually evolving channel. So I want to continue to learn from others, and I'm also always happy to try to help them learn from me.
Terrific. Well, amen to that, Dan. Thank you so much. And of course, my listeners know that I will share those links in the show notes page, including anything else that we shared here, that we discuss here today on this episode. So I want to remind everybody before we sign off that they can get their digital copy of Social Business Journal, Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer marketing that we produced in cooperation with Cision, and that's at our homepage or socialbusinessengine.com/Cision. And while you're there, visit our video channel where you can catch interviews with other inspiring business professionals that are succeeding in modern business through social. And as I always like to request, yes, this is a request, if you enjoy this podcast, would you consider writing a review in iTunes? Reviews in iTunes are like SEO juice. It helps other people discover the podcast. And we have a page set up on our website that makes it real easy. Just go to socialbusinessengine.com/iTunes, and that links directly to the podcast in, of course, iTunes. So that's it for this episode. Until next time, this is Bernie Borges of Find and Convert, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.